There is no progress on COVID boosts in the UK, despite the fact that there is enough vaccine available. A patient organization has meanwhile published a spicy list with practices that do not give a third vaccination. British doctors are sounding the alarm because there appear to be major problems with further immunization of particularly susceptible patients to COVID-19. Actually, it should have started long ago in the form of a third booster. But various medical professionals and patient organizations such as Kidney Care UK and Blood Cancer UK say that tens of thousands of patients who should have received their booster vaccinations are still waiting. It is unclear what the problem is because enough vaccine seems to be currently available in the UK National Health Service, the famous NHS. The Vaccination Commission had already recommended at the beginning of September that patients with a weak immune system and certain pre-existing illnesses that need special protection, estimated at around 500,000 patients, should be contacted by the end of October and immunized as soon as possible. It turns out, however, that the large vaccination refreshment campaign has only started sporadically. Kidney Care UK also took the unusual and highly controversial step of publishing the names and addresses of around 80 NHS family doctor practices that refuse to give patients a booster vaccination. Medical representatives sharply criticized the publication of the practice data. In the Kingdom, both the number of new infections with COVID-19 reported daily and the 7-day incidence are extremely high compared to Germany and many other Western European countries. There are currently around 30,000 new infections every day, and the 7-day incidence nationwide is constant at over 300 cases per 100,000 inhabitants, where I'm sitting in Germany at 63. But still, the party congresses in Great Britain have shown that the Tories and Labour are de facto working together. But what is the difference between the two sides? There are two distorted images of the current situation in Great Britain. One paints the country in an endless crisis. First, the negative consequence of Brexit, then the devastation caused by Corona. Now a supply crisis in which isolation and incompetence exacerbate each other. The other designs a country in bright colors that has successfully mastered Brexit and Corona, which is now facing global challenges and where a new era of prosperity and progress is just around the corner based on timeless values. The first distorted image is that of many government opponents in Great Britain and is also fostered in the German media, and that's the way I see it too. The second distorted image is that of the Boris Johnson administration. When asked which of these images is correct, the short answer is completely none of them. The current supply crisis could herald an economic crisis, and many current uncertainties are coming together. It is not yet possible to say conclusively whether the government will find the right answers. I do have my doubts there. The more interesting question is anyway, what follows from the existence of two so diametrically opposed points of view? And the answer to this is a paradox, because the big showdown between Brexit fans and Brexit opponents, between Johnson's government and the opposition, simply does not want to occur. By the way, I don't really put this opposition in the anti-Brexiteers. This has been shown by the two annual party conventions of the Conservatives and Labour in the last 2 weeks, the first since Corona and the first since Johnson's election victory. The two party leaders, Keir Starmer and Boris Johnson, could hardly be more different in nature. Here the entertainer, there the orator. But what separates them in terms of content? Both want an active, strong state, both emphasize the value of work and patriotism, and both refer to Tony Blair's legacy. When Starmer now replies to Johnson's election campaign slogan, "Get Brexit Done," from 2019 with the demand, "Make Brexit Work," he is drawing a line under the most important issue of the past. When Labour accuses the Tories of being too lax in the fight against crime and Boris Johnson urging companies to pay higher wages, political differences are blurred beyond recognition. Great Britain discovers the de facto Grand Coalition just as Germany is saying goodbye to it. And the new London consensus plays within the framework that Boris Johnson has defined. Well, you can think that's terrible or good, but either way, it's the reality, and I wish there would be another. And according to the head of the German-British Chamber of Commerce and Industry, his name is Ulrich Hoppe, British consumers have to be prepared for occasional further bottlenecks. He says it will be bumpy. You will make certain compromises in service quality and time reliability. You will certainly feel that then, said Hoppe about the refusal of the government in London to address the acute shortage of skilled workers in the country with long-term easing of the immigration rules that have been tightened since Brexit. A few days ago, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson called for comprehensive reform course to strengthen the domestic economy and he did that at the Tories party conference. Instead of relying on cheap labor from abroad, companies in the country should pay better salaries and thus bring more British people into wages. Well, despite the current supply crisis, the Prime Minister spread confidence. His government had initiated a long overdue change of course, which in the long term would lead to an upswing with high wages and high productivity. Hoppe does not consider Johnson's strategy to be plausible. He says that will not work on a large scale in the short term and is more likely to harbor the risk of inflation. Well, and the man is an expert. Increasing the productivity of the British economy has been the goal of various governments, and that for many decades. But this requires a long-term plan to reform vocational training, and that is a generation task. Hoppe says that won't work out within the next 5 years. The AHK boss also considers the idea that British job seekers could fill the gaps left in the low-wage sector by workers who have returned to Eastern Europe to be unsustainable due to the low unemployment rate. Criticism was also expressed from the business world. As I said in another video, they are portrayed as a boogeyman by Johnson, but the problem is much bigger. And Richard Walker, head of the Icelandic supermarket chain, told the Times, "We want to pay our people as much as possible. But companies are not an endless sponge that can soak up infinite costs. We will have higher energy prices, more truck drivers, more packaging costs. This cannot be done all at once." And as I said before, many smaller companies in particular are at risk. I talked about the representative of the Federation of Small Businesses before, and exactly the small and medium-sized businesses are the important ones in every Western economy nowadays. But the Conservatives are not really listening there, and that's why they feel that Labour is now their party, but I have my doubts there too, with the way both parties are working at the moment. But with a symbolically important decision, the British Supreme Court struck the hope of those in favour of Scottish independence. The Scottish Parliament exceeded its powers when it voted in March to incorporate international rules into Scottish law, the Supreme Court in London ruled in a decision announced on Wednesday. It was only about the powers of the MPs. The UK government had argued that this would pave the way for Scottish courts to have the power to challenge UK Parliament decisions. London fears Edinburgh could use this push to push through a new independence referendum, but that didn't really have to do something to do with that. Well, but tens of thousands of unpaid carers will receive a double payment of the carers allowance supplement this winter under legislation passed unanimously by the Scottish Parliament last week. Recognizing the additional pressures unpaid carers face as the result of the pandemic, the December payment of the carers allowance supplement will be doubled to £462.80, benefiting more than 91,000 people. This extra investment, forecast to be £21 million, will be the second time the Scottish Government has doubled a carers allowance supplement payment. The Carers Allowance Supplement Scotland Bill will also give ministers power to provide eligible carers with additional financial support in future if the need arises. And Social Security Minister Ben McPherson said about this, "We introduced the Carers Allowance Supplement in September 2018 to address the fact that Carers Allowance was the lowest of all working age benefits. The £230 payment is in addition to the Carers Allowance in recognition of the role of carers play in society. In recognition of the additional pressures caused by the pandemic, tens of thousands of unpaid carers will now receive another additional payment of more than £230 through our Carers Allowance Supplement this winter. This additional payment means that this year carers in Scotland will get £694.20 more in support than carers in the rest of the UK. We also made a double payment last year, so over the past 2 years, we have invested over £120 million from our own budget to support around 91,000 unpaid carers. The Carers Allowance Supplement is unique in the UK and is one of 7 new benefits we have introduced. The Scottish Government will always consider if additional payments are needed in the future, bearing in mind the broad range of support we provide across society and taking account of our limited tax and borrowing powers. The Carers Allowance Supplement is paid twice a year to carers who are living in Scotland and receive Carers Allowance paid by the Department for Work and Pension on specified qualifying dates. The qualifying date for the December 2021 double payment is October 11th. To be eligible for Carers Allowance and therefore the Carers Allowance Supplement, you must be providing 35 hours or more of care per week. Recipients can only earn up to £128 a week after deductions through paid work. The person the carer looks after must be in receipt of one or more of the following disability benefits: either personal independence payment, the daily living component, or disability living allowance, that's the middle or highest care rate, the attendance allowance, or constant attendance allowance at or above the normal maximum rate with an industrial injuries disablement benefit, or the constant attendance allowance at the basic full day rate with a war disablement pension or armed forces independence payment. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.